Hey guys, it's Josh with ABG Tutorials, and we're finally going to be making our first web page here. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to use an editor to save your very first HTML page. We're going to add some information to that page. We're going to view it, and then I'm going to show you how to edit the page and view, and alongside that comes these things called tags. And we're going to learn what tags are. We're going to learn some common tags. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you the essential tags that all of your HTML pages must have. And I'm going to show you a really quick way to kind of load up a blank page that has them already built in. So be sure to stay to the end. And as always, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and join me on this journey to learn how to web develop. As we get going here with learning HTML, you're going to need to use an editor. On an earlier video, I talked a little bit about that. I use Notepad++ or Brackets. Both of them are free and open source, so check them out. If you want to use something else, that's completely fine too. It's up to you. And the process for setting up a page is going to be very similar. So first thing, you need to have the software installed. I'm not going to walk you through that. You can see here I've got Notepad++ and Brackets already installed. I'm just going to open up Notepad++ and just show you. First thing here, you see it's just down here in the lower left, it says it's a normal text file. And so what's essential before we start writing code is that we save the document as a .html file. It's done a little bit different in each software, but it's also done very similar as well. So up here you can see under language, they have all sorts of built-in languages. As you want to learn other programming languages, feel free to use Notepad++. So if you go under the H, obviously, and select HTML, now you've got this hypertext markup language down on the bottom left corner. And then when we want to save this file, so we're going to save as, I've already got a folder on my desktop called HTML files, and you can type something, first page, and you can see it's already selected as a hypertext markup language file. So you're going to go ahead and click Save. If I go to that folder, you'll see I have my very first page, and it actually shows a web browser because it recognizes it's an HTML document. Okay, I'm not going to show you how to save a blank HTML document using a different program, but I am actually going to use Brackets to edit my code in. It feels familiar. I've always kind of used it, and it's just my personal preference. So to open the file, remember I already saved this. I called it first page, and you see it's a web browser. The web browser's recognizing it. So you guys may have different web browsers as your default ones, but you're going to have to be able to, first of all, if I open this, nothing is shown. It's just a blank page because I haven't added anything to it. I have to be able to open it in my editor. Now here it says edit with Notepad++. I don't want to use that one. You guys will have different ones perhaps. I'm going to say open with, and there's my brackets. So if your program isn't there, you can go to choose another app and you can find the one that you downloaded and you prefer to use. You can see I also have Visual Studio Code. I don't prefer to use that one either, but I could. So I'm going to open it in Brackets, and you'll see it looks very similar to what Notepad++ looked like. I'm going to change the font size a bit so that you guys can see, and I'm actually going to write something here. This is my first web page. Very creative as usual, and I'm going to save it. And then you have to go and preview that page. So you could minimize this if you wanted to. You could come here and double click it, and look what happens. It says this is my first web page. And now what you need to get in the habit of doing is having your editor open and your preview page open. Now I have multiple monitors, so I can basically move my preview page on its own monitor. I can use my full screen to write my code, and then I can preview easily. Other editors have split screen. Other editors have different methods to live preview, but you're going to want to have your editor open, which is right here, and then the live preview also open so that when we add things, you can see the changes. And I'm going to show you something really quickly here. So if I add a new line here, this is a second line. Oops. This is a third line. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring up my preview. And all you have to do here is hit refresh. And look at what happened here. I want you to take special note of this. In my editor, I added new lines. In my browser, it didn't add a new line. And so what we're going to need to do here is use what's called a tag. And I'm going to explain that to you right away. But I want you to notice this so that you can always add a new line when you're writing code, and it's not going to make a difference. You have to specifically tell it to add a new line with a tag. So what are these tags I'm talking about? Well, they're used to modify your HTML page. And each tag will do something unique. And you need to learn what each tag does so that you can learn to modify your page to make it look the way you would like. Now, I just talked about that issue there where if I add a new line in my HTML, it's not actually going to add a new line on the web browser. I have to tell it to do that. Okay? And there's a line break tag, and I'm going to show you that later in my video. But I want you to understand this concept of a tag. How do I insert it into my page, and what does it do? And here are two examples. In this first example, you can see the body tag is being opened and closed. That's what that's called. So the content that goes in between that, that's called an element, and it will react according to a bunch of rules. So the body tag is there for more organizational sake, and all of your main content goes there. But this is an example of a bold tag. And here's the B. You can see these little symbols. And this slash is what closes it. So I'm going to show you later a bunch of main tags or common tags and what they will do to modify your page. Most tags need to be closed. So you'll see body, open, close, bold, open, close. You'll see italics, headings, all sorts of tags we're going to learn. Table, image. The unique thing here, though, is some of them don't need to be closed. And an example of that is the image tag. If you wanted to add an image to your page, you use the image tag, you attach the source or the reference, and your image will just pop up. You don't need to close that tag. As you get used to writing HTML, you'll know which ones need to be closed and which ones won't. And that's also why we use an editor. The editor will remind us, hey, this tag needs to be closed, or this tag doesn't. So here you can see some common tags that will modify your page. The B is bold, the I is italic, H1 is a heading, H2 is a different size heading. So we're going to test out, see which one's bigger, which one's smaller. BR is that tag that I needed earlier because it was not starting a new line. So BR stands for break, and it starts a new line. P is a paragraph tag. It'll automatically start a new line, and it'll kind of group that content in a paragraph. So I've gone ahead and added a bunch of tags into my HTML file here. I'm going to open it. Remember, you go to where your file is. Now, when you're building a web page, you guys, there's tons of files, multiple pages, images. You need to have your folders organized. So always start a folder and save it somewhere, and then that way it's easier to go and find your pages. So I'm going to right click. This time it says open with brackets. Don't forget you could use the open with and select a program if yours isn't there. Now here's what I've added in. You can see up here the BR is the new line tag, and we can add it into my code, and then we can live preview and see what my code looks like. I added in some bold, some italics, H1, H2. Let's see which one's bigger. I added in a new line one again, and then a new paragraph. So I'm just going to live preview this so that we can see what it actually looks like. In brackets, you can just click this little live preview in the top right. It will load up. And here we go. So now we can just compare. So first reminder, I said, remember that if you add a new line in the editor, it's not going to make a difference. So the first time I added a new line, and this time I left these two all on the same page here, or sorry, on the same line, and you see in my editor, where is that? Right here, it still adds the same line. So sometimes you want to add a tag and keep writing code. Sometimes you want to add a tag and use that as an opportunity to start a new line in your editor to be a little bit more organized. We don't want to make errors. So again, you can see everything I've typed, bold, italics, heading, and we can compare it with what the actual code or the web browser displays. H1 is in fact bigger than H2, you can notice. So as it goes down in size, the size is going to be smaller. So you can use that to organize your pages. Notice how the paragraph tag automatically starts a new line, so keep that in mind. You don't need to add a BR tag, you can just add a paragraph tag. Okay, I'm just going to quickly show you why the editor is nice. Right here, you can open the tag and start to type, and look, it'll fill in or guess. What are you trying to say? Which tag are you trying to pick? Well, let's pick H3, and then when I close my tag, look, brackets automatically, when I close my first little opening tag, brackets will automatically add the closing tag for me, and then I can go and say this is heading 3. We go to save, and then we go back to my page, and this time it live updated. Depending what kind of editor you're using, you're probably going to have to come back and click refresh. So if you ever add information to your editor and you're wondering where it is, just make sure you refresh your page, and there it is. This right here is the basics behind learning HTML. You need to learn by doing. You need to get an editor. You need to learn how to save an HTML file. You need to learn how to preview that when you add your code. And then the process just becomes learning your tags. Each tag does something different, and then it's kind of like a tool in a toolbox. As you learn more tags, you now know how to modify the page. When you're building a web page and you want to make it look a certain way, you go back and you find the specific tag that will help you do that. So these are the essential tags that all of your HTML pages need to have. The first line here, this doc type HTML, that's just for your browser so that your browser knows that what it's about to read is in fact HTML code. There's the HTML open tag, and you can see at the bottom it closes. So you get used to this idea of opening a tag, putting content in, and then closing it. And sometimes you want to close it earlier, and sometimes you want to close it later, depending on the tag. Now these, for the most part, are just to organize your code. There's a reason for them all, and you're going to learn them eventually, but they all need to be there. I'm going to show you guys a little trick here. Since I just showed you the essential tags every page needs to have, we can kind of start a blank HTML document that already has these every single time. And so I'm going to show you here. Remember, we should be using folders to organize. So my first page, I've already modified it. So I'm going to open with brackets. You can see here, it has the main tags. Now first, let's take a look at what this title tag does. I'm sure you're excited. And if you look here, it's loading. So all you see is all of your main content goes here. We don't see what's in the head. You'll learn later we can start to put styling and write other types of code in the head. But the one change that does happen right here inside the title, and the title does go within the head tag, it changes the title of the tab. So if your page is going to display a certain category of information, you want to name that title accordingly. Now, the trick that I wanted to show you is we can now save this, save it as. So I want to save it as a unique page here, its own page. And I'm going to call it HTML start. And I'm going to add .html, and I'm going to save it. Now, why I like to do this is because every page you're starting, whether you're learning tags or actually developing a web page, they need to have these. So let's go to where I saved it in this folder, HTML start. And what you can do is you can go to properties and select that you want this to be read only. Now, when you open this page with brackets, it won't let you change this page. You now need to save it as something else, which is perfect. That's what I want it to do. So on a future video, when I'm going to show you how to maybe make images, you would take this HTML start, you would say save as, and you could now call it something like imageslearn.html. Then that way you can go to the same spot all the time, load up the blank, which isn't blank, page that has the essential tags, and then we're off and running whether we're learning or building a web page. Thank you guys so much for staying till the end. I hope you are enjoying your process of learning HTML, and as usual, always be grinding.